Hey, it's Alex Ratcliffe from Board Game Co., and it's another to back or not to back or crowdfunding roundup. I may slightly be changing the name format of these videos. We'll see. Just to back or not to back doesn't leave enough titles, stuff, room for other things versus crowdfunding roundup. We'll figure it out. That's neither here nor there. Today is going to be a busy day. We have a lot of campaigns not funding. We have one cancellation. We will hopefully, possibly, perhaps remember to actually have picks of the week this week. We'll see, maybe, I don't know, hopefully. And past that, I will be spending the second half of this week in Toronto, hopefully if things go well. I haven't seen my family in a year and a half because of COVID and border shutdowns. We're hopefully heading there this week, so I'll be gone like Wednesday through Sunday actually, which means I have to make sure I have daily videos all set up before I go. It's going to be a busy day. And with that, let's go ahead and jump into it, starting off with the cancellation as usual. Timestamps down below to any relevant section. The Kickstarter adjacent, Kickstarter's not funding, updates on past Kickstarters, new Kickstarters, and all of that. And starting with Limbo Eternal War, they unfortunately canceled on this one. They do hope to come back. They'll be coming back. This is going to be the 1.5 version of Limbo Eternal War. They didn't either market it enough or something enough or get it out there. Whatever it is they're doing, they have an update in it. They will be coming back to Kickstarter. But for right now, I mean, don't get me wrong, $96,000 is nothing to sneeze at. But at the same time, they had a funding goal of 147, and it looked like they may cross it. They might limp past it. And in general, when companies are limping past funding goals, I am a big fan of resetting, restarting, and figuring out a way to blow past your funding goal as opposed to limping past it. It's a very different experience for that. So that's going to be Limbo Eternal War. Moving on to a whole bunch of not funding categories, some of which are almost certainly going to fund, like Lots Filled In. Lots Filled In at $5,000 out of a $6,000 goal. Very, very decent chance that this will fund. Again, this goes back to how funding goals are an interesting thing, because we have a $97,000 campaign that canceled, and we have a $5,000 one that will hopefully make its way past to the $6,000 goal with 7 days to go. This is going to be the roll and write version of Lots. Lots is an already existing game, and this one's going to be dice drafting and polyomino shapes as you grab dice. Some degree of hate drafting, some degree of grabbing what you want. If you like polyominoes, if you like drafting, if you like denying your opponents what they want, if you like roll and writes, there's a little bit of everything here to fill you in. See what I did there? To fill you in. Yeah, anyways, I'm just, my day job is I'm a comic genius. It's something that I return to. Anyways, this is going to be Lots Filled In. In general, I don't really heavily dive into the value things on things that aren't funding yet, so for the next 7 or 8 of them, or whatever it is, I won't be heavily going into should you back it, should you not. As a good rule of thumb, something with this low a funding goal or this low of a backer list, usually they aren't great backs, just the math of it doesn't work out. That said, again, that's a general rule of thumb as opposed to me having dived deep down into this one to see how it's going. Next up, we have Green Hell, the board game, another example of a $59,000 funding goal out of $89,000, $90,000 goal. They have $60,000 raised. They will likely fund as well. 14 days to go past that halfway mark. There's usually a bunch of rules around Kickstarter. They're not perfect rules, but a good general rule of thumb is you might hit a third of your total funding will be in the first 2 days, a third throughout the campaign, and a third in the last 2 days. Which means if you don't get a third of your way through your funding through the first 2 days, you're in trouble. Based on being $60,000 through, there's a decent chance that they will fund throughout the campaign, a more than decent chance. Whether or not they choose to cancel and relaunch to get more of a boost is a different conversation, but they almost certainly will fund with 14 days to go on Green Hell, the board game. What is Green Hell, the board game? So first of all, it's an already existing IP, I believe a video game. I'm not familiar with it myself, so excuse my ignorance there. But as far as the board game itself, the board game is going to be a survival-esque style board game. You're going to be cast into the jungle with your characters as you wander around trying to explore, accomplish your individual objectives, take tests. I highly recommend watching the video from Not Board Gaming from Mark Dainty. He really goes into a deep dive into the game, covering all the points, covering comparisons to Robinson Crusoe, to another game, to This War of Mine, covering general feelings of the game. The game itself, the Kickstarter campaign page, for whatever it's worth to the project creators, it doesn't do a great job really telling you how the game plays, so much as telling you small sub-aspects of the game, like how you can move through the jungle, how you can roll dice to gather equipment, to search and harvest. It gives you some general aspects. It doesn't really tell you a good feel for how the game goes. It does have a beautiful little, tower over here for that fun stuff. But that's going to be overall there. Again, not funding yet. First-time creator. This is going to be Galactus Games, I believe it was. Let me see if I can find it. I believe it was Galactus Games. we have over here Galactus Games. Yep, Galactus Games, green held a board game. Oh, and then the big thing here, I will comment on price. I'm not commenting on value so much, but price point, they have a $98 entry price point for a standee pledge. That's $98 for a standee option. That is fairly expensive, and that might be one of the reasons it's not funding yet. And then to actually get the game is $115 for the core pledge with miniatures. My own personal opinion is that $20 difference. What is it? Is it 20 or 25? No, it's not even. It's a $17 difference to get standees versus miniatures. I don't think it was worth doing that. Your first price point that you see here doesn't look worth it, and your second price point already looks much better. Plus, they're signing up for 33 backers right now who want the standee pledge. They have to go with the manufacturing cost for 33 backers. I don't think the standees pledge was worth it, to the point that if it only sticks at 33 or even 60 by the time it's done, it may well be worth eating those costs themselves and upgrading people to miniatures, although people may not have wanted miniatures. I would not have recommended the standees pledge, for sure not with that price differential on this campaign. So that's a bit of a 2 cents there, but either way, hope they fund. We'll see how it goes. I expect them to fund. And moving on to Council of Backyardia. Council of Backyardia is going to be a Mancala trick-taking game. One where it's trick-taking, but you're going to have a Mancala element going on in the game to kind of determine the value of any individual cards or any individual thing in the game. So you're going to have the Mancala element is dealing with the trick-taking aspect of it, and then the trick-taking is the trick-taking. And then we have over here, I just love, there's a quote from Matt Jude. Is it Matthew Jude or Matthew Jude? I feel that a content creator or anyone who's public out there, the point at which they've really made it is when you start reading what they write in their voice. So I'm reading that whole testimonial from Matt Jude in Matt Jude's voice and mannerisms and style of speaking, because he's great. Anyways, this game is broken. Matthew Jude's from This Game is Broken and from Watcher Played. But overall, yeah, this is going to be, that's a complete side point to any of this. This is a trick-taking Mancala-ish game. Overall, the feedback is great. If you look at the testimonials, Board Game Barrage, Matthew Jude, anyone else who's on the page seems to have nothing but good things to say about the game. They have $7,000 out of $22,000 with 18 days to go. This one is in the... We'll have to see. We'll have to see if it funds. I don't know. I'm not confident. It's too early to say. Moving on, we have Cartouche. Cartouche is going to be another polyomino game. So we have 2 polyomino games in the not funding category. This one has almost $10,000 raised, 19 days to go, just launched. So it's looking good, but it's also going to be close. And Cartouche is a game that claims to be borrowing from Patchwork from Baron Park and giving you more variety in the gameplay. It's going to be one where your goal is to get these polyomino pieces and to slot them next to other pieces to get the bonuses. So if you slot yellow next to yellow, you'll get a little token or whatnot. Along the way, you're going for a variety of different goals in it. Let me see if I can find the goals over here. You're going for a variety of different goals. Goals like surrounding different pieces, from gathering different tokens, all those kinds of things. And then you're going to have general gameplay goals as well, overarching goals you'll be going throughout the game. It's polyominoes. It's multicolor polyominoes where you're trying to match up different things to different things. Already that has me intrigued in it. I'm a big fan of polyomino games, as you probably know this already. I like Baron Park, I like the Grand Carnival, I like Isle Cats. Eventually got rid of that one. I'm very much looking forward to Planet Unknown. Polyomino games I'm always interested in trying. The only question is whether I like them enough to keep them, because I'm always weighing them up against each other. But I always like them, and I'm always down to trying this one. And that's going to be Cartouche so far. Again, not funding yet. I expect it to fund. This is going to be from Bluebeard Entertainment that have a whole bunch of games under their belt. I believe their last game was Village Pillage, I think was their last Kickstarter. But anyways, moving on. We have The Adventures of Tennessee James. And I almost didn't include this one because of the 112 backers. This one really seems to be focusing far more on mass market in terms of its appeal, as opposed to designer board games. But that said, for anyone who wants to play games with their kids and likes the Indiana Jones feel this game will give you, I was like, hey, I'll cover it. Why not? Let's go over it. So Indiana Jones, first of all, the art in general reminds me of, what's the name of the company? Sam Milham's games, like Get to the Choppa, which we just covered last week. The art and visual appeal, if you had told me this was a Sam Milham game, I'd be like, that totally makes sense. That said, I'm pretty sure Sam Milham has already had his own adventure Indiana Jones offshoot game. But this is a game where you're going to be running around the board. There's going to be 4 different boards. You're going to be putting down different tiles. There's going to be traps and treasures, and you're running around the board with your archaeologists and your teams, your crews, to basically collect various tokens. Again, very mass market in terms of what it's doing, in terms of the gameplay style, in terms of what it's just the general game is going to feel like a mass market game. But if you want something light and fun to play with your kids, and if you like that Indiana Jones vibe, I'll talk about it. Price point is going to be roughly $36 plus shipping to get the game. There was an early backer pledge where you got an additional set of game board tiles. But yeah, that's going to be The Adventures of Tennessee James. So Tennessee James is definitely not an acronym for Indiana Jones. Okay. Moving on to where are we? Oh, board game adjacent. That's where. So we have one board game adjacent this way, and then this week, and then we have like 3 board game updates, and then all the new games we'll be covering. So Avatar Legends. But before we do, not coffee, seltzer time. So what do we have here? Avatar Legends, the role-playing game. $4 million raised. Okay, not 4 million. 3,779,000, but close enough. 31,000 backers. Apparently Avatar is popular. Did you know that? Because I knew that. I knew it was popular. I didn't know it was this popular, to be fair, but I knew it was popular. This is going to have pledge levels anywhere from as low as, $20 to get the PDFs of the game, where you have 3,000 people backing for the PDFs. You have 50 people backing for the core book. You have $50, 1,200 people backing for the core book. And then if we keep scrolling up, you can go all the way up to the $200 pledge level, where you get absolutely everything for this game. And that's going to be 7,000 backers who jumped in at $200 a piece, or at $100 you have 5,200 backers at $100 a piece. Basically, the point here is people like Avatar. I was actually just in a conversation last week about the nature of how 90% of role-playing is going to be on the D&D system, on 5e, just the basic overlaying system of that, but apparently Avatar is definitely going to be jumping in, giving some people a run for their money. And yes, I know that 30,000 people is not a big chunk in the giant scheme of the amount of people who play D&D. But either way, if you want an Avatar role-playing game, that's the extent of the coverage I have here, because I don't know enough about role-playing to cover it competently. I need to play role-playing more, just to give it a shot, just to get more in the feel of what it is. I've only ever played one RPG game, and I was not a fan of that one experience. And yes, people will say, but the DM wasn't good. Probably, but I still wasn't a fan of that one experience. Anyways, I'm down for it at some point, in some way. I'm looking forward to Daenerys RPG. That might be the one. That's going to be on the D&D system, I believe, but that's going to be one that might pull me in, just because I already know Daenerys, plus it can be played solo. That has me paying enough attention. Not that Avatar is bad. I mean, I heard there's going to be an Avatar TV show in the works, maybe. I think that's a thing, right? That is a thing. We had the movie. That was bad. I believe there's going to be a live-action TV show that's rumored. That's a bit of a tangent, and let's go ahead and move on to updates for the week. So, a few updates. This is basically, I just go over, in general, Kickstarter campaigns that I've already talked about. If they have something new to talk about, if they have a reason to cover it again, something that's changed, something that's been added, additions, add-ons, stretch goals, changes, whatever it is, then I will try to dive into it in my general to-back or not-to-back. And to that end, Oros is just a minor update. Oros is, there's no first of all, there's just one thing. Basically, in one of the recent updates, they announced, let me see if I could find it here, it might be faster to do it that way, because I actually noticed I didn't see it on the main campaign page, so I'm a little confused there. Let's see if we can find it here. I believe it was over here. Yep. So over here we have the Grande Mountain Rundown. It's going to be a little miniature expansion that is added for free to the collector's pledge, or you can pay $10 as part of the retail pledge, which is a big deal. It's going to be a little modular thing where you have your own special mountain that you can put on the board, adding a little more of a tactical depth. One more thing to be mindful of as you play through Oros. Now, the reason that's important is because if you are one of the 231 people on the retail standard edition over here, well, they just closed the gap from a $25 gap between these two pledge levels to a $15 gap if you want that extra expansion. So that's going to be a big deal, another big reason to jump up a pledge level if you want to. Over here, and this, by the way, I totally forgot to do it last week. Last week, my pick of the week, my gameplay pick of the week was Oros. I believe Tom Bassel on Crowdfunding Roundup picked it up as his game of the week as well. This is a great game that I have really enjoyed playing, and I'm looking forward to the final game. As far as the collector's edition, or as far as stretch goals, let's see what we have over here, because they have a whole bunch of things. You can see over here the Grande Mountain over here, collector's edition expansion, and then $10 as a standard add-on. Then from there we have stretch goals, nothing really new from last week, same stuff before. We had Spot UV, we have tokens, we have more cars, we have goals and achievements, which I know some people are unhappy about that pad, but either way, we have all land tiles getting Spot UV, which is very cool. I don't care about Spot UV on boxes, but on land tiles on the board, that's going to add a nice sheen to your gameplay. We have the double layer player boards, which are a huge deal for me. Absolutely obsessed with those. I always want that kind of thing. It's just cool and better. Stops things from being knocked around quite as easily. And by the way, when playing Oros, I have had it happen where I didn't know what one of my pieces was because a tiny little nudge just pushes it off to the side. We're going to have Spot UV on the map and Ascension track. We have inside the box artwork, not a thing I care about, but hey, why not? We have more setup variants, and we have a neoprene mat for $24. That's going to be an add-on over there. That's all the stuff for Oros. There's not going to be another update because you have 3 days left to go. I mean, probably 2 days by the time you watch this. Let me see if I could drag this. You have 3 days left to go. Cross the $200,000 mark, 3,391 backers. I think we'll end at 262,000. Let's go with that. And people are like, Alex, I thought you said a third of the funding comes in the last 2 days. I know what I said. I forgot what I said. But either way, yeah, we'll see how that actually goes in Oros. But we'll see. I'm curious. I'm happy for him, happy it's funding, happy it's doing well, and very much looking forward to getting my premium copy with deluxe insert and spot UV and all that stuff. Next update. This is a big one. Okay, so this is the why I threw in the title of this video, massive Divinus update. Is it massive? Well, I think so. I think it is a massive Divinus update, which is why I wanted people to see this. 3 days left in the campaign, not a lot of time left to go, and it is a massive update if you haven't seen it, because they're giving you free recharge packs to your game. So Divinus, if you're not already familiar with it, is a legacy game, and as a legacy game, you destroy components, and they spent the whole time, the whole campaign, telling people, hey, there's not going to be recharge packs, because it won't work functionally, or it'd have to cost too much money, it's this, it's that. Turns out, if enough people want something, that changes the conversation. And enough people actually seem to want the recharge packs. So what are they doing? They're giving you recharge packs for the game, and they're giving it to you a free, so they're creating recharge packs which can be purchased, which will extend your life of Divinus however long you want to keep resetting it. And then secondly, and just as importantly, or more importantly, they are giving you free recharge packs at whatever pledge level you want. So for the base game and for the expansion, whichever levels you ended up getting, you're going to get free recharge packs, which is going to basically be a €25 value, but as far as the savings is €25. As far as the game, it's effectively doubling your game. You have to be willing to reset it, obviously. You have to be willing to go through that steps of taking off all the stickers, doing what you need. But now, if you like Divinus, if you enjoyed it, and you're like, I want to play it with that person over there, well, you can play with that person over there, assuming that person over there is willing to play games with you. If they're not willing to play games with you, I don't recommend pushing or insisting. It's not the way to get people into games. It doesn't matter if you can reset your Divinus or not. You want someone who's willing to come to the table with you and play games. Once they're there, once they're like signing up for it, once you've shown them the beautiful artwork and you've convinced them that it's a reason to play, well, that's where you should make them wait for an hour while you reset your copy of Divinus so that you can actually play it with them. That's the best way to have a first experience with board games. Weird tangents that I go on. Anyways, that is going to be the big update around Divinus, and the reason why, if you were on the fence before, well, you just got literally an extra €25 thrown onto your pledge, and you can play this game a full second time if you were concerned with that, and if you weren't, you can sell it now. That adds to the resale value now. Now that Divinus can be reset, there's a much higher chance or likelihood of it finding some degree of secondhand market value, which definitely increases its, well, resellability after the fact. As far as one other thing worth noting is if they have one of the most recent updates is going to be basically some spoiler warning, the legacy campaign. Now, I've done the sacrifice for you. I've read through this update to see how spoilery it is. My own opinion is go ahead and read this fairly safely. I didn't get any major spoilers about the game, with the caveat that I have played the first two scenarios. So I've played the first two scenarios. If once you know about how the first two scenarios work, I don't think this really adds much that felt spoilery. They talk about other stuff, but like nothing that was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're doing that. So if you want to go ahead and read through that update, I mean, you have to trust my opinion that it's not that spoilery, but I didn't feel it's that spoilery. Even the way the minis are incorporated, they kind of like gave one example of how minis can be incorporated, and the rest is still a little fluffy or vague. So that could be a good thing or a bad thing. On the one hand, it's not that spoilery and you can read away. On the other hand, if you're expecting some massive clarity about how the campaign will progress, you're not going to have that either. And one more update, which is going to be Spires and Hildegard. Spires and Hildegard. I always say Hildegard, but it's Spires and Hildegard. So Spires and Hildegard is going to be a solo or cooperative game. I've talked about this already. There's no major update in the, thing that I'm showing you now. Why am I talking about it? Because tomorrow, go ahead and check out my channel tomorrow, one of the reviews going up tomorrow, I think the one at the end of the day, so like 4 o'clock, I think, or 2 o'clock or something, later today at some point, there'll be a playthrough-ish and review of Spires and Hildegard, so if you want to go ahead and check that out, but by all means check it out. If you don't want to check it out, my short version is I like it, but if you want more details, you'll have to check that out. So that's why I'm talking about that there, and I believe with that we move to all the new campaigns, and give me a second. So, where are we? The Zorro dice game, Stunts and Allies, 390 backers, $18,000, 12 days to go. This is going to be another expansion. I believe they already have one expansion. This is going to be the second expansion for the Zorro dice game. The Zorro dice game is a lighter rolling dice game that there's a few expansions. There's a base game over here already. There's the Heroes and Villains expansion that they already had. And now the new expansion is going to be the Stunts and Allies expansion, giving you a whole bunch of allies and stunts for like mid-turn decisions. Overall, this is a game that very much is on the lighter side. On Board Game Geek, it's rated like a 6 something. It's a lower rated game. If you're interested in it, by all means, not necessarily one I'd encourage or incentivize off the bat, especially if you're looking for designer standard board games. This is going to have a slightly more mass market appeal, a more gateway general appeal to it. As far as the pledge levels and exclusives and all that, pledge levels is going to be $19 to get the game. Now, if you're looking at the game alone, it's not worth it, because the expansions on Miniature Market are going to show up for like $9 a piece. So you'd be paying $19 plus shipping, and you'd basically be paying 3 times the value to get this expansion compared to waiting for retail, assuming it shows up at retail, which if it's anything like the original expansion, it probably will. The flip side is you'll also be getting the Ally Pack, the Equipment Pack 2, and the Character Cards Pack. They are giving you a bunch of extra things that you can get in the game, and a bunch of extra things that are exclusive. So we go over here, you can see the Ally Pack, Kickstarter exclusive, the Equipment Pack, the Alternative Card Pack, the Equipment Pack, and all that. Basically, and if you can go through, there's other pledge levels as well. Pledge levels we can get like all in deluxe base game expansions with all the boxes and extras and all these other things as well. The short version for all of this is none of this is going to hold its value as far as weighing up the secondhand market and selling your own copy. If this is a game that's not for you, at least based on the original games, you're not getting your money back on this. You're going to lose something trying to sell it secondhand. There's not a huge amount of demand for the game. If you're weighing it up against retail, well, then your options are you can pay cheaper and get it at retail, or you can back it on Kickstarter and you'll get all the exclusives. So it depends on how much you value those exclusives and whether you'll think you'll use them, benefit from them, and or otherwise just generally want them in your collection. Moving on, we have Excavation Earth. It belongs in a museum. This is going to be the expansion adding, well, more content. It's a second expansion, I believe, for Excavation Earth. Excavation Earth already had the other expansion, whose name I totally know. If I scroll down quickly enough, I'll know it. They had the expansion Second Wave. The expansion Second Wave was with the original Kickstarter, and now they have the expansion It Belongs in a Museum, adding new races, new ways to score, a whole bunch of new things to Excavation Earth. Excavation Earth, if you first off you want to watch what Excavation Earth, just watch this Kickstarter video because it's not about the expansion, it's about Excavation Earth. But Excavation Earth is basically going to be a market game. It's going to be a game where you're running around the board, you're all aliens returning to Earth to gather artifacts and sell them on the market and store them in your own private collections, and it's a game where you're going to be, well, taking actions to do all those things I just said. But a big part of the game is the market manipulation. It's trying to incentivize who the buyers are so that there's demand for one artifact versus another, so you can go ahead and sell those artifacts at the right time. With other things as well, with that whole collection management, with other aspects to be mindful of as you play through the game, but it's primarily a market game that each expansion adds more ways to play the game. If you are interested in the game, well, first off, if you're interested in the base game alone, I recommend retail, because the base game over here, the pledges you have over here are going to be $30 or $75 to get all the other stuff plus the base game, but that $45 can anyways just go towards buying the base game right now online and getting it now instead of later. So if you're just interested in the base game, I don't think this Kickstarter is a place to be. If you're interested in the new content, the expansions, all that, well, then you can go ahead and get the $30 will get you the expansion over here. The Custodian will get you the expansion, plus the Junk Tiles promo pack and the exclusive 100 coin for over there for Kickstarter exclusive. This is going to be similar to Zorro. Different game, different weight class, but similar end result, which is, if you're interested in the expansion alone, that expansion, that $30 expansion, which you're also paying shipping for now, is likely going to show up at retail for closer to $25 at your local online store with free shipping, assuming you spend $100 or more. So in that sense, if you're just weighing it up from that alone, you're much better off just buying it at retail. But if you're looking for the extras, the Junk Tiles promo pack or the 100 coin, well, then that's what you're going to be paying for extra in the campaign. Where you really get to see a little more of a value or incentive is if you go to the Collector Pledge. The Collector Pledge is going to go, is that the Collector Pledge? I believe. Yes, the Collector Pledge. The Collector Pledge is going to give you the base game, the expansion, the second wave expansion, all the stuff. It's going to give you coins as well. That's where you're going to see a smaller savings, especially once you factor in the coins. You're getting a $10 discount there. You'll be getting all the extra content. You'll be getting a whole bunch of things together at a savings that is slightly better than getting everything at retail. Plus, you get all that Kickstarter exclusive stuff. So, as far as your best arguable bet in terms of just weighing up all the numbers, is going to be the Collector Pledge. Obviously, that's not helpful if you already have the base game, and especially if you have the second wave expansion, at which point your option is just, either getting these things separately through add-ons, which you can do as well, or getting the Custodian. Should you back it, should you not, does it hold its value, all of that. A short version is, if you look at the secondhand market for Excavation Earth, it's one of those games that definitely is seeing a bit of a hit, but not much of a hit. So if you back this game, if you're turning around and selling on the secondhand market, it's one that it does see a bit of a hit. You can expect to lose something if this is a game not for you and you want to go ahead and sell it otherwise. As far as Kickstarter versus retail, that depends on whether you care about those exclusives and whether they add much to you, and or just hunting these things down separately. Like even the coins, doesn't matter if you can get them separately, just getting everything in one place does have some sort of convenience, so it depends on what you want or value there. Moving on, we have Almanac. Is it Almanac? Is it an Almanac? something Crystal Peaks. I think it's Almanac. And Almanac Crystal Peaks is going to be from Colossal Games. And this is the second game. The prior game was going to be the Dragon something or other. Let me see if I could find it here. It was going to be the Dragon Road from their game. Now, what is this game? So first of all, as always, I recommend watching Meeple University Stella's short and sweet. It's 4.5 minutes, 5 minutes, and then boom, you know how to play the game, you know general overview, and you've already danced through a few different pages of seeing the game, because this is going to be a page-based game. This is ultimately a worker placement game where as you go through the adventure, every different page gives you a slightly different twist on how the worker placement works or what you're juggling as you make different decisions around that. So it's a lighter worker placement game with variable rules that keep it interesting. Not legacy, but like not campaign, but just modifications, variants, variables, whatever it is, something like that in terms of keeping the game fresh and different, plus, you know, fun little whimsical light artwork. Crystal Peaks is going to be expanding upon that universe, and the Treacherous Trail allows you to combine both those games together into one system, and that is a very relevant point to the should you back it, should you not part of the conversation, because if we look at the pledge levels, $49 gets you the Outpost expansion. Now, they're saying this game will have an MSRP of $60, which makes sense. The original Dragon Road had an MSRP of $50, but because of everything going on with freight costs, people are raising their MSRPs across the board. So in general, manufacturers are giving slight raises because of the fact that the industry is currently getting more expensive until things subside. So going from a $50 MSRP to a $60 MSRP is entirely reasonable. And then additionally, the Treacherous Trails expansion is going to be a $15 MSRP, meaning you're basically paying $50 for $75 worth of MSRP, which might sound good, except for two things. One, you're paying shipping. So suddenly you're getting $60 for $75 with MSRP, which changes the whole conversation. Now you're just back in just pure, straight, old medium territory, but it's worse than that if you don't care or want the Dragon Road, because the Treacherous Trail expansions, from what I can see, is combining the two games. It's allowing you to jump back and forth between the two games, which means it's not much of a helpful expansion on its own. So yes, congratulations, you're getting it, but if you just want the Crystal Peaks and you don't want anything else, it loses a lot of its value there, and at that point I would definitely recommend waiting for retail. So let's go through all the things now. As far as selling on the secondhand market, based on looking at the original, this is not one that holds its value in the secondhand market based on the price point you're seeing here. So if you're selling on the secondhand market after it's not for you, you will lose something there. As far as retail versus Kickstarter, if you just want the Crystal Peaks, wait for retail. If you want the Crystal Peaks to combine with the Dragon Road and you're getting the Treacherous Trails expansion along with it, it pairs out to about even. You're probably still losing like $2 or $3, but you're getting it earlier. You don't have to worry about retail, so it's a little bit okay, but not great. And then lastly, you have the Open Road Pledge, which is where it's a little better, because the Open Road Pledge is giving you the Dragon Road onto that for an extra $30. You get the Merchant's Manifest and Dragon Road for an extra $30 from the Outpost expansion, which is great because the Dragon Road right now online is $40. So really the pledge I would recommend the most, if you do not already have this game, is going to be the Open Road expansion. And if you just want the Crystal Peaks, I'd recommend waiting for retail. And if you already have the Dragon Road, then you could get the Outpost. I guess it depends on how much you care. It's not going to be a good deal. It's not going to be a bad deal, but you are giving your money up a year in advance, and I guess hoping it makes its way to retail. So, or alternatively hoping it makes its way to retail. That is going to be the Almanac, Crystal Peaks, and all of that. Moving on, we have Dragonbond's Lords of Vaala. There's a lot going on here. So, Dragonbond Lords of Vaala is going to be giving you a lot of information, a lot of content. Let's cover the game first. The gameplay of this game is going to be a 1 to 4 player game, although you can expand it to 5 or 6 players with one of the expansions, and it's going to be one where you're basically, let me see if I can find an overhead view. Can we find an overhead view of the map, or it's not going to give us that? It might not give us that. This is the part where I should be usually... Okay, here's close enough. So we have Dragonbond Lords of Vaala. You're going to be playing as dragons and generals. Now, the Dragonbond refers to the fact that dragons and generals can merge effectively, and then suddenly they have to get more points to win, but they're working together, so that, you know, helps out or balances out well. As far as the actual gameplay itself, the gameplay is you're going to be going ahead and playing cards into a common stack. You'll have an event card that goes into the stack, then you'll be adding cards one at a time to basically trigger the actions in order. So you're playing out actions, understanding, it's almost like programming to an extent. It basically is programming to an extent, where you're planning out your actions based on how you think or hope things will turn out, which may or may not be in your favor. And then from there, you're going to go ahead and close off the stack with another event card, flip it over, and start reading all the cards, starting with the event, going through all the actions. The actions will involve moving, attacking, gathering power. Power is how you ultimately win the game. It's going to have things like generating, you can eat other soldiers if you're a dragon. You can put strongholds on the board if you're a general. There's going to be a degree of asymmetry in the way the different types of factions play this game, each with their own private decks, and there's also going to be special Vaala cards. The Vaala cards are going to be some of the cards you play, let you grab or play play a Vaala card. So you have this other aspect you're managing in terms of your special abilities in the game. That's a general high-level overview of how the game plays. Normally you play to 10 power, although you play 10 power, although if you Dragonbond, you're playing to 15 power, and the power is also spent to trigger your Vaala cards. You don't lose it. So for example, I might earn 3 power, and then I might spend the 3 power. I still have the 3 power as far as trying to get to 10 points. The tokens are double-sided. That's overall a high-level overview of Dragonbond Lords of Vaala. Now, there's a lot going on this Kickstarter page, so let's try to go ahead and go through it. Lots of pledge levels to be aware of. For myself, by the way, I've played the 2-player. I've played this game at 2 players. I like it. I need to play it more before I can review it, because I feel that 4 players is likely the best experience. I have not played it solo, so there is solo play. You can play as all the characters that are not, you're always playing with 4 characters minimum. I don't know how the 5 and 6 works. And then any character that's not represented by a human player is turned down and played as a faceless player with their own minimal AI system. Very minimal, players making decisions, very easy to go through it. As far as the gameplay though, from my 2-player game, I believe this is a game that I would enjoy most at 4 players, which is why I want to get a game of 4 players in before I actually review it. But overall, I can totally see the appeal. I mean, overall I enjoy the game even at 2-player. I just think it really will shine at 4. But that said, going through the actual pledge levels over here, the pledge levels are going to have a variety of options. To begin with, you have a $15 print and play pledge level, but even once you go to $49, what you're going to get there is you're getting the free miniatures option. There's going to be a bunch of stretch goals here. Maybe we'll come back to those. Let's see if we can scroll down to the pledge levels. So $49 gets you the base game, and it's a retail price of $49. So you're paying $49 for $49, and that's where you already know, you're like, wait a second. And the answer is yes, because you're also getting with that, you're also going to be getting the miniatures pack, which is a free $30 add-on. The Armies of Blood and Dreams turns all the miniatures in the game to, well, miniatures, because previously you have these soldiers tokens on the board. And speaking for myself, from having played the game, I really felt the thematic disconnect between having, generals and dragons and then flat little tokens representing the soldiers. I don't mind tokens. I don't mind miniatures. I don't mind meeples. My personal pet peeve when it comes to these games is I want all my things to be the same. If they're miniatures, I want them to be miniatures. If they're meeples, I want them to be meeples. I don't like the mismatch of different types of things. I'm sure that people will come up with exceptions for me. And if you say Gloomhaven, no, Gloomhaven's not an exception. Gloomhaven is the game's a good game, so I'll put up with that disconnect. But I like it so far when things have the same type. If you have an exception from games I've played that I've talked about how much I love them, and I haven't complained about that, let me know, because then I'll have to update a review somewhere. I don't know. But either way, so Armies of Blood and Demons, Armies of Blood and Dreams, the Blood and Demons expansion is a whole different thing. Overall, that's fun, that's great. Let's talk about the general value of that before we dive deeper down. So $49 is basically going to be the pledge for $79 of MSRP combined. The $30 plus $49 is $79 of combined MSRP, and you're paying $49 for it. $50 for $80. That's pretty good. Except again, you're also paying shipping, so now it's really $60 for $80, which is again decent but not great. Decent but not great, and nothing here is exclusive. Everything, they're giving you extras as, an original backer of the campaign, but nothing is exclusive. So the base pledge of Dragonbond is fine, it's good, it'll probably show up in retail, you might be able to save a few bucks, hard to say either way. The base pledge is fine. Moving on from there, unfortunately, it gets a little worse because your MSRP keeps jumping, but the extra addition you get does not. In other words, the freebie you get is the $30 miniature pack. The rest of the stuff keeps jumping up, and you're not getting that much of a savings. Some of the higher tiers do have a little bit of combined $5 or $10 off, but usually at that point, at the higher tiers, for the convenience aspect of getting it all at once, by all means do so. For the pure waiting till retail and getting the better price there, if you're patient, that's what I'd recommend for the higher pledge options. What do the higher pledge options have? Well, at $79, you're going to have the Legends of Valerna expansion, which is giving you 5 or 6 player count, giving you more characters to play with the game. Now you can play a 5 or 6 player game. At the $99 expansion, this is a big deal. The $99 expansion is not an upgrade from this. It's an adjacent, meaning you're not getting the Legends of Valerna. So in other words, you're going from $49 to $79, paying $30 extra to get the 5 or 6 player expansion, or you're paying $50 extra to not get the 5 or 6 player expansion, but rather to get the Creatures of Valerna expansion. Whenever you have these pledge levels that kind of are different and not pure additions, I like calling it out, because it's easy to think that $99 was getting you all the stuff, including the Creatures of Valerna. It's not. It's getting you the Blood and Dreams, you're still getting that, and then you get a whole bunch of creatures that are like these neutral characters on the board that are, well, involved in the game. So those are the two gameplay options there, and the 5 to 6 player expansion is useful even if you just want variety in characters, as opposed to just, actually having it for 5 to 6 players. And then finally at $120, that's when those two are combined, giving you a $10 discount. So again, a little bit of a discount there, could arguably worth it, especially for the ease, but not a great price, not a bad price, not a great price. But overall, that's going to be giving you both them, the Legends of Valerna expansion, the 5 to 6 player, the miniature pack, and then the Creatures of Valerna, all of that stuff being added to your game. And then if you really want to go overboard, you can spend $170 or more, but if you do so, this is no longer for gameplay content, this is for extra stuff, or at least not gameplay content in the board game. You're going to get, for an extra $50, you get one of these hard plastic unpainted dragons, and you're like, I can justify that. There's 3 of them. There's 3 of those ridiculous over-the-top plastic dragons. I'm not saying you don't want them. I'm just saying if you're like someone like me, for instance, I was sitting there looking at the $170 pledge and thinking, maybe I'll justify it. And then they're like, there's 3 dragons. And I was like, that's it. The dragons are gone. I'm not justifying $150 or $160 to get all these extra dragons. I will be content and fine with my all-in pledge other than that. So that's where I was on the giant miniatures. And then for $320, you get absolutely everything. That's going to include all the dragons, all the other content for the Dragonbond RPG, basically everything you could possibly imagine or want for all the stuff. Now, I believe, by the way, the dragons, the big giant ones, are usable in the RPG. I'm not certain on that. Don't quote me on that. That's going to be all of that. So should you back it, should you not? Again, very simple for this one. As far as holding its value on the secondhand market, it is less likely to do so. Inherently, when you have a pledge level where once you factor in the price point, it is basically the same as buying it online from your local online retailer, you're likely going to lose $10 or $15 when you turn around and try to sell this down the road later. So even if, I enjoy the game, I'm looking forward to the game, but you probably will lose some money in terms of selling it secondhand, just because even the entry basic price point is roughly equitable to what you'd end up paying once you factor in that MSRP and the discount online. At higher pledge levels, until you get to that $120 pledge level, where the $120 pledge level gives you at least a discount or a reason to consider going in, the other intermediate ones don't really do so. So those I'd kind of recommend passing unless you're just backing it for the convenience there. That's going to be overall Lords of Vaala Dragonbond. Which brings us to Legends Academy. We got 3 left, including this one. Hey, we're making good time today. We're making good time. Only 36 minutes in. I thought this would be much longer based on just how much stuff there was to cover. So, let's go ahead. Legend Academy. Breathe, Alex. Breathe. Legend Academy. $126,000 raised, 1,800 backers, and 22 days left to go. Plenty of time, which means we'll probably see some form of more updates depending on what gets unlocked throughout the course of the campaign. Legend Academy is a game that I already have a review on. We have Borg & Co., Man vs. Meeple, Jeremy Howard, tons of content on this game. This is an adventure exploration game with card crafting, with deck building, with character abilities, although there's character abilities as well. Tons of different things you're going through the game, and it's an adventure system where there's 5 chapters, or at least 5 chapters in the base game before we talk about Kickstarter, stretch goals, add-ons, anything like that. And as of right now, by the way, there's just a solid single pledge. $69 is your pledge, nothing else to go over. Those adventures, those 5 chapters, each chapter is divided up into 2 adventures. So you have 10 adventures effectively, although you play them as a 2-part. So you play a single chapter, depending on your gear player count, you're talking about anywhere between 90 minutes to 2.5 hours, I would say, to play a full 2-chapter game. In theory, you can save it. I wouldn't save it. I don't know if you could save it. I wouldn't save it. I'd just play the 2.5 hour game. I'm okay with that. It's a fun game. As far as what you do in this game, you're going to be wandering around the board with your little miniature, trying to accomplish various objectives for the chapter goal, all while just trying to do anything you can to gain points left, right, and center. And I mean it when I say left, right, and center. There are cards that will give you points. There are going to be scenario objectives that are going to give you points. There's going to be any number of different equipment and upgrades you can gather that will give you points just for running your engine, and that is why this game is so much fun. This is a video. I was actually just recently was watching Quackle had a vlog, whatever it is, and Shira was saying how one of the things she hates in games is where games punish you for doing fun things, and I agree with that entirely. Legend Academy is a game where you get rewarded for doing fun things. The game rewards you and incentivizes you and gives you points for doing fun things. You never have to choose between, do I want that ability or do I want to cash it in for points instead? No, you want the ability and it will give you points. There's so much fun things happening in this game. There's card crafting, there's leveling up. It has a Too Many Bones kind of tech tree that you can see over here where you're deck building, but you have to deck build in order. Every single round you're going to be taking action on the board and then going to school to level up, to learn. And when you go to school, you choose a variety of different upgrade paths. The upgrade paths include adding cards to your deck. They include card crafting to add more cards into your sleeves to further level up and augment the way you can actually build out and develop your engine in this game. And then you're always trying to accomplish various goals. You know, you spend 12 coins in a turn, boom, 15 points. Move 7 spaces, boom, 15 points. I love Alice, by the way. I've played as Alice in most of my plays, and she's a lot of fun. Anyways, but yeah, you have this aspect of asking people of help. All of that, you can watch the review if you want more information there, or you can watch any of the other numerous content creators who cover this game. As far as general, you know, so that's going to be that. Let's see, okay, if we have, sorry, I'm getting lost here. We have lower cost. So let's talk about the pledge level, all that, should you back it, so it's that kind of thing. So lowest cost is going to be this, you know, 30% off the MSRP of $99 based off industry standards, production costs. In general, if you looked at the game and thought 99 sounds high, I'm with you. Where I understand where that cost comes from is, first of all, they're going to have these sleeved cards which have to be printed on. If you follow Dead Reckoning, you know that printing on clear plastic that goes into sleeves, that is a lot more work and a lot more expensive. It can add a lot to the cost. And then secondly, they have this like magnetic class, you know, board situation over here. So combined everything else, I can see the $99 MSRP, and then combined with, of course, industry standards, production, industry changes, and production costs going up in general. As of right now, they have no plans for retail. That does not mean it's not going to retail. That means they have no plans for retail. I assume that means it won't go to retail, but I don't know for sure. You never really know. So yeah, take that with a grain of salt. Understand it's a possibility, but not a guarantee. So this is the whole why back now section. As far as you get 2 free exclusive expansion. These backer exclusive adventure novels are mini expansions that include lots of new components and gameplay. That's relevant, which is a good time to go through these stretch goals. So stretch goals, what do we have so far? We have dual layer player boards, which is awesome, because that is always awesome. I love that. We have linen finish on cards, one of those things. We have the free mini expansion. This is going to be exclusive, meaning even if the game does go to retail, this is not going to go to retail. So they have no retail plans, and then they have things that even if it does go to retail, will not show up in any of the, well, retail stuff. We have the free mini expansion 2, free mini expansion solo 2-player game. We have the 5-pack of equipment cards, again, backer exclusive. We have gold foil finishes. We have a contrast wash. This is going to be, you know, like, what do you call it again? Like storm shading or what's the Awakened Realms called? Sun drop, any of those kind of things. Basically, it's becoming more and more standard for companies to give out backer washes, give out washes on their miniatures for those who want to save time and just see their miniatures a lot quicker, better, whatever. That's overall going to be El Dorado so far. So high level overview, I really like the game, like it a lot. The Kickstarter campaign, $69 for the pledges, the stretch goals coming, more stuff coming, 22 days to go. Where are we on the should you back it, should you not? Short version is despite loving the game, I'm not confident on the value here. You see, here's where we are so far. We currently have how many backers? We have 2,000, no, we have just shy of 2,000 backers. By the time this campaign's done, we'll have 2,500 backers. You have to look at El Dorado's past games to get a good feel for the will it hold its value, will it not. The $69 price point, I'm fine with. But you're going to have to add in shipping. Shipping's $15 to $20, so assume $20. That brings you to $89 on this game. That is a lot of money. You're looking at, that's a full equivalent of Zombicide retail or whatever it is for the game. Now, given a choice between Zombicide retail and this, I would take this. I mean, Zombicide with expansion is a different conversation, but this, the amount of stuff that you'll get for the game, the amount of content, the amount of upgrades and just fun you can have in that base game is a lot of stuff going on. But if you look at other El Dorado past games, if you look at their El Dorado line of games, which unfortunately were not well rated, those do not hold their value at all. Those things you can get at, you know, a third their price in the secondhand market. Those are not holding their value. If you look at games like Windward, which was well received, was not panned like El Dorado was well received, but not necessarily loved. Windward is going to be a game that did a better job at getting more of its money back, but still did not hold its value. If you backed Windward and you're trying to sell in the secondhand market, you are losing something on that exchange. Then we have the Age of Atlantis, which hasn't landed yet, so I can't look at that one as a reference point, which means the closest thing we have is the combination of me knowing Windward and the secondhand market on El Dorado games when you look at Windward, and then combining that with the fact that Legend Academy is a very good game. I'm telling you that right now, for the people who have played this game, the feedback on this game is excellent so far, which means if you're looking, I can't compare to Windward, which I haven't played. I can tell you that Legend Academy is a very good game, which means I expect it to hold its value better than Windward did, but I can't tell you how much it's going to hold its value. My expectation if you backed a Legend Academy is it can go one of two ways, and I'm not confident which way it goes. Option one is that it holds its value better than Windward, but you still lose something. That $69 pledge when you try to sell in the secondhand market, maybe you only get $60 for it. Maybe you lose $10 or whatever it is. Option 2 is the general word of mouth around this game is positive enough and people like this game enough that it holds its value and then some. I can see it going either way. It depends on whether other people, in general, once it starts hitting people's hands, is the general reception of this game as positive as the way I feel about this game. That is ultimately the question in terms of just how much it holds its value. Are people in a rush to get rid of their pledge, or are people trying to seek it down because everyone can't stop talking about how good it is? So overall, I would say expect to lose something, but you might actually not. That's where we are on Legend Academy. Should you back it? Should you not? Moving onwards. Oh, and as far as retail, if your question is retail versus not retail, well, I mean, no plans for retail, and they haven't really said that in the past that much. So, like, I would assume there's like a small chance it goes to retail, but if you want to hedge your bet, back the Game Found. And by the way, if I said Kickstarter about Divinus or Legend Academy or Lands of Galzyr, I mean Game Found. Just replace. You'll find and replace whenever I talk about those. Arydia, the paths we dare tread. They crossed their funding goal, and that's reasonable and not reasonable. That's notable because their funding goal was $720,000. I did a full dedicated Should You Back It video on this last week, and even when I covered it, I think it might be the first time in the history of this channel where I did a full Should You Back It dedicated video on a game that hadn't funded yet. That is very rare for me. I don't do that because usually I do dedicated videos on games that have a lot of hype and a lot of backers. But when you throw a $720,000 funding goal in your campaign, you can have a lot of hype and have a lot of backers and still not be funded yet. Arydia, the Paths We Dare Tread, if you didn't watch that video, there's no short version here. How do I do this in as short as time as possible? 23 days to go. Expect updates, first of all. So expect updates on this campaign as we go. Arydia, the Paths We Dare Tread, the very short version of this game, is a game that takes place on multiple tiers. You're going to have the world map you can see over here. The world map over here is going to be where you navigate around the board, very RPG-esque, wandering around, making decisions, heading here, exploring and discovering the map. From there, you dive down a level. You can dive down a level into the local terrain. So once you actually encounter, you say, oh, I'm going into this farm, you have this local terrain where you can start making choices around that farm. You can have, oh, great, I want to explore out back. I want to look in the shed, look in the farm. I want to dig into the river, whatever it is. I want to head into the house, into that basement. And then if you head into the house and into the basement, you have a third level down where now you start escalating into the dungeon crawler mode of, well, combat with rats or enemies or who knows what, as you start taking advantage of all that gear, all that equipment, all these skills and abilities you have been augmenting or leveling up as you go. And that's where you have the actual combat of the game taking place. So this is a game that has story, it has adventure, it has exploration, it has adventure mode, it has combat, it has leveling up, powers and abilities, skills, it has a whole bunch of things packed into a single package. And if that doesn't scare you, it should. Except this is by the creators of Xia, the Legends of Adrift system, and so that does give you, and plus it's been in development for like 7 years from Cody Miller. There's a lot of background here that makes me believe this game is good, including the fact that Jeremy Howard and Mark Street, both of their videos, they have separately said outside the videos they are fans of this game system and are recommending this game system. I don't know if they're recommending. They like this game system is what I'm saying. You know, they have their preview videos and then they have their personas on Facebook where they comment and say things, and those are the ones I pay more attention to because they are more free with their opinion there. But past that, we have, that's the high-level overview. I don't want to go do a full deep dive. I have a full video on it if you want to check out that. As far as the should you back it, should you not for this system, the short version is, I believe it will hold its value, but also a degree of not confidence. I compared this one to, we didn't talk about the pledge level in case you missed that video. The pledge level is going to be $165 as your entry point to this game. I apologize for not telling you that up front. I mentally was thinking that you know that because you watched my other video, but if you didn't, $165 for the base game, $109 for the base game plus Epic Hunt, but let's look at the MSRP. The MSRP is $240. Which means, once you factor in shipping, the price point to MSRP is reasonable, assuming that MSRP holds up, which it may or may not. The reason I think it will hold up is because I compared it most notably to Eclipse Second Dawn for the Galaxy. That is the game that I think this Kickstarter most reminds me of in terms of the price point, the game it's selling you, and it's not really a miniatures-heavy game. Yes, they have miniatures. They have pre-painted miniatures, exchangeable miniatures with body parts, so you can, you can customize your character, swapping in the head as you create your character. They're adding new characters in the stretch goals as we go. That's going to be even more interchangeable bits and pieces and body parts and all those things, and all of it coming pre-painted. Lots of cool things going on here, but ultimately the question is it worth it to you? And is it worth it to the second-hand market? And or should you be getting it at retail? So overall, from those three options, I think getting it on the Kickstarter versus retail, I think Kickstarter is going to be your best bet. I think you will see it more expensive at retail if it makes its way to retail at all. Keep in mind, as anyone selling a game online, anyone selling a game online or in stores has to decide, whether they are comfortable stocking a game with a $240 MSRP. That is a big ask. That is shelf space. That is money tied up. You have to hope people are going to buy it, which means people will do it, but not necessarily as many people as you might otherwise think. So I think the retail availability will be on the lower side. It'll be available, but it won't be left, right, and center, unless, of course, this game is a smash hit, in which case you'll still be better off having backed it on the Kickstarter. As far as will hold its value in the secondhand market, this is a game that, like Eclipse Second Dawn for the Galaxy, in my opinion, will likely be between print runs very often. I think you'll be totally fine getting your money back if you sell it between print runs, especially as the market stabilizes around how many people actually want a copy of the game. I think you are totally fine to back this game, and I am confident in the value on this game, that you will hold this value. It's still a bit of a risk. This is not your standard miniatures game with, 370 miniatures, all storm shaded with interchangeable parts. I mean, that's not standard, but wherever. But it's a different game system. But it's one that is unique enough and is coming from the creators of Zia, and I think it will overall hold its value. And lastly, before we call it a day for this video, is going to be Lands of Galzyr. It's messed up. You see, last week I put out a video that was like an hour and 10 minutes. So now, as long as I make it under an hour, I'm like, I am good. That was a short video, ladies and gents. We can call it a day. So, Lands of Galzyr. Lands of Galzyr is going to be from Snowdale Designs, who have done, I always forget this, they have done, what are their games? Dale of Merchants. I always forget the other game. Do they have it on their page somewhere? They should have it on their page somewhere. I always forget their other game. Oh my gosh, it bugs me every single time. They have another game that I forget the name every single time I'm thinking it. It's like nope. Whatever it is. So, Lands of Galzyr is going to be an exploration game that's very narrative heavy. It's going to be a game where, let me see if I can stop scrolling around and giving you whatever. You're going to have this map over here. You're going to be slotting cards down onto the map. Not slotting to the map. You're going to be overlaying the map with cards that give you different interaction points. You're going to be engaging in those interaction points with this massive journal, if I can find it somewhere on the page. They're going to have, you have your characters, you have these tokens, you have all these cards, tons of all that. Where is here we go. The Book of Adventures is going to be your online, it's not going to be a physical book, it's going to be your online interaction point system. You're going to interact with hundreds of different stories in this game, that every single thing has a ton of different interactions on cards, on locations, decisions to make. There's a ton of content here. They say that if you're playing it as a solo adventure, expect roughly 24 plays of the game before you've fully seen everything in this game. And if you're playing it with more players, it might be 12 plays into the game before you've seen everything, and that still doesn't take away from the replayability. You can still continue to replay it. Every adventure or pathway or way you go through it will be different in this game, but this is an exploration game where you're trying to gain, I don't remember if it's prestige or notoriety. There was something you're trying to gain in this game, but this is a game that I've seen from multiple content creators, from Quackalope, from Legion of Games, that to a certain extent, winning is present. The idea of trying to get points in this game and trying to win is a factor, absolutely. At the same time, it's kind of a secondary factor, as you really just explore and go down your journey, go down your pathway, see how it plays out, and sure, you might have the most points at the end of the game. Yeah, that might be a thing or not, which may appeal to you. It may not. You may look for a game that you want a clear, decided winner, and you want to focus on winning the whole time. From what I've seen so far, I would say this is probably not the game for you if winning is the focus over journey and exploration in the Lands of Galzyr. Which brings us to the should you back it, should you not, and this one is a bit tougher. As much as I like Snowdale Design, as much as I like Dale of Merchants, as much as I mean, basically the short version is, if you look at the should you back it section on this page, why back now? Be a part of the journey. Help us fund the game. Great bundle price. For those who want to go all in, we've built a great discounted bundle that includes all the accessories. Get the game first. Retail availability after the campaign isn't guaranteed. That last sentence is going to be the biggest one I would focus on. So effectively, there's a few reasons to back the campaign. The first is, if you want all the accessories, they give you a great bundled price. It doesn't sound like the base game is a great price. It sounds like there's a great bundle price. Meaning it does not sound like there's any major MSRP discount of anything. Even once you factor in shipping and this and that, it doesn't sound like the MSRP of the game alone and how it'll show up in retail after the fact is a good reason to back the game. It sounds like there's a good bundle price reason to back the game, and or retail availability after the campaign isn't guaranteed. To that end, I would say isn't guaranteed. There's all these weird statements people have to make on Kickstarter, and they're all complicated. We have Legend Academy saying no retail plans, and then we have Lands of Galzyr saying retail plans, retail availability not guaranteed. These are all these different forms of hedging that people put in place because no Kickstarter creator wants to say, hey, it'll be at retail, if they don't know it'll be at retail. It's bad enough to to push somebody off, to push off a backer, and then not even have it available at retail is it's money lost that you didn't even need to. But they also, if they don't have guaranteed retail plans, you don't want to tell them either way. It's a bit of a binding thing where they don't necessarily know their plans, and wording can matter. So wording we don't have retail plans often, unless they're deceiving you, means that, listen, we're not making promises here, but we don't currently plan it. Versus retail availability after the campaign isn't guaranteed sounds more like it's probably going to see retail, no different than the rest of our games that have seen retail until now, but also I don't know for sure. We might wind up in any number of different things. The Kickstarter might not do well enough to demand retail. It could be any number of reasons not to. Overall, I would say this game is very likely to see retail. With 1,300 backers already, I think this game has enough of an audience that there is a reason to bring this one to retail, but that does unfortunately take away from some of the reason to back it on Kickstarter. Again, a bit of a risk, but I believe that's what I would side with based on the awarding and based on what I know at Snowdale and based on their past games. As far as pricing, the Lands of Galzyr Deluxe Edition gives you a great bundled price, saving you €40 off all the accessories, which is very, very good if you want the accessories. If you don't want the accessories, not as helpful. The accessories include a €15 dice tray, a €15 extra dice set, a €10 journal, a I think €25 sleeve pack, a €25, was this how much it was? I think the Playmat Plus bag was €25 Playmat Plus bag. We have a €10 soundtrack. That's a whole bunch of stuff that is a good discounted price point if you want that stuff. If you don't want that stuff, it's just a cheaper way of selling you. I mean, for instance, like €15 for extra dice, that's great. I mean, it's not great. It depends if you value it or not. €15 for a dice tray, that has no value for me. I have plenty of dice trays. I don't need another one. I don't care about the dice tray at all. Sleeve packs, €25. I get my sleeves from Sleeve Kings. Meaning for myself as a consumer, by the time I look at these add-ons, I can wipe out those €40 in savings in a heartbeat because I just don't care about enough of those things, which means there's not much of a savings for me personally. You might be different. Everyone's going to be different depending on what they value from all this add-on content in that bundle. Which means, as far as the should you back it, should you not, if you're interested in all the accessories and add-ons, or even most of them, then I'd say the Lands of Galzyr Deluxe Edition for €129 is probably the way to go. If you're not interested in this game, and you're willing to take that risk on retail availability, then I would say hold off and just wait for retail. It'll be cheaper there. You'll be able to get it for probably less money and without the shipping, because you'll buy it from your local online retailer, and that is unfortunately the conclusion, I guess, for should you back it, should you not, for Lands of Galzyr. Very interesting looking game. Just depends on whether you should get it now or later. Bit of a risk either way. As far as secondhand market, my assumption is that at the price point, especially if it's going to be cheaper at retail, then it won't hold its value in the secondhand market. There could, as always, be a short gap where before it shows up at retail, but backers are starting to get their pledges, where you could sell your copy for more than you got it for, especially if it's a good game. And so far, it does seem to be a good game from the content creators who have gotten their hands on it so far. And that is everything. And based on a helpful tip from a viewer, I am leaving a tab up at the end of these videos where I include the picks of the week as a little just note for myself so that I can actually remember to go over the picks of the week. And to that end, I have 2 picks of the week. The value pick of the week is going to be Arydia Lands of the Paths We Dare Tread, meaning the value pick of the week, to be very clear, is not the cheapest game at all. It is the one where I think it is most likely to hold its value and or be worth what you paid for it. It's hard to say for sure, but I think especially for sure in between print runs, Arydia the Paths We Dare Tread is ambitious, it's notable, it is different. I think this game will be heavily sought after, and I think between print runs for sure, you can get a decent amount more than what you paid for it back, and even when print runs are active, you can probably get your money back on Arydia the Paths We Dare Tread. As far as my personal pick of the week, in terms of the game I personally like the most, it's going to easily be Legend Academy. I am very much a huge fan of this game. Like I said already, had absolutely a ton of fun. It's exactly what I like in games. I mean that. The game is just giving me powers and abilities, and it rewards me and incentivizes me for finding combos, for doing fun things. It is exactly what I like in games. That is going to be everything. Actually, remember my picks of the week, thanks to the viewer who suggested throwing this up here. And until next time, and as always, I am Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Thanks for being here, and have a good one. By the way, this is my little guy. Here we go. Let's put that full screen. You see, look how adorable it is. These are my T-Turtle shirts, by the way. I've been getting... I previously only had like 1 or 2 T-Turtle shirts. They're like little comics, but I get them more and more because I justify them. See, this is the links I go. I justify them as being, well, relevant for my content. You know, I put out enough videos. I don't mind having fun T-shirts. They're cute to have fun, different T-shirts. So now I spend more money on T-shirts than I used to. Not a ton, but like every time there's a good sale, they constantly have things on sale. I always buy them when they're $12 a piece instead of $24 a piece. I never buy the full price ones. I always buy them when they're on sale because they constantly rotate their sale stock. So every like 3 to 4 weeks I'll pop on and buy like another 2 or 3, pay the $5 shipping, and boom, $40 and I got 3 new shirts. It's, you know, I can justify it because of the videos, because they're fun. And I get comments in them, by the way. I get a lot of comments on these shirts. This is not an ad for T-Turtle. I am not a sponsored content for T-Turtle. It's just the end of the video, and this is what I do at the end of the video. So let's see what we have coming up next week. Next week will almost certainly not be a 2-back or not to back. Let me see, where's my tracking Kickstarters list? Tracking Kickstarters. Next week we should be safe. We have we have Flamecraft going up next week. We have Master of the Universe Archon. Master of the Universe is probably getting a dedicated video. Flamecraft, we have a Mask, Criminal Capers, and that's like it. So there's not going to be, as of right now, there's not going to be a 2-back or not to back next week. There will be a replacement video, and there will be a dedicated video on Master of the Universe probably, okay? We'll see what happens there. Speaking of Master of the Universe, I am continuing to play the Command Master of the Universe, because we'll have content on that one at some point, but the Command Master of the Universe is very much my jam. Very much my jam. It's basically Rise of Moloch, but different, and I like Rise of Moloch a lot, so we'll talk about that one more. It's going to be a fun month, just happens to be next week will be a little lighter. In any case, as always, have a good one.